Hey everyone, I hope that this video finds you doing well. I just read a tweet the other day. Someone said that they caught themselves writing an email that said, I hope that this email finds you vaccinated. I like that sentiment. I hope that many of you are able to start getting the first rounds of the vaccine, that things are going as well as they possibly can be for you and your families. I wanted to just check in with you as we do every week. We're halfway through Unit 6 at this point. If you didn't complete the first assignments for Unit 6, you can still submit those for credit, as is always the case. If you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. Of course, this unit, we're starting our work on the final project. So most everything, not quite everything, but most everything we'll be doing from now until the end of April when the semester is over will relate to the final research project. You've been able to think through some of the aspects of historical study in terms of primary and secondary sources. And now we're thinking about how to choose a topic. I've left that wide open for you so that hopefully you can choose something that is interesting to you, recognizing that everything has a history. But most importantly, we're thinking about how to write an effective research question. And so behind me here, I have the results from that Google form that was part of this week's assignment. I'm going to try not to give away at least any of the word answer keeps coming into my head, but if you've completed this assignment, you should have been able to access the Google Doc where I kind of explain my reasoning for posing these questions and presenting them to you in this way. As I noted there, most questions with revision can be made effective. These ones just had certain things going on with them. So again, I wanted to show you some of the results and talk through it a little bit without giving too much away, hopefully, for those of you who will still be completing this. So that said, let me move this over here, move my head over. All right, so what I did with this then is I gave you a set of questions. You had to decide if the question was effective, if it could become effective with minor revision, or if it would need to be entirely rewritten in order to be an effective research question. Right there, you should know this is pretty subjective work that we're doing, but it's important because the research question itself defines the limits of the project. It can foreclose certain possibilities or leave you open to them, depending on how you phrase things, how you're thinking about things. And we want a question that is analytical, that asks why or how, that will make you take some sort of a stance on a subjective aspect of the past and make an argument for it, rather than an evaluative question or an informational question that just asks those kind of straightforward, the who, the what, the when. Those aren't unimportant details, but in terms of designing a research project, they're not that helpful because, again, you want to be looking for the big overarching issues, something that you can write a narrative around and make an argument about, provide a new interpretation. And so just wanted to show you how these things split. This one, it is an analytic research question. It could be a little bit more specific in certain ways, but I would agree with the effective or could be with minor revision. This one I found interesting that it was so split. Who were some of the historical figures that advocated for women's suffrage in New Mexico in the early 20th century? The main problem right off the bat is that this starts with who. It's asking for details. It's not asking for the what or the why. Or excuse me, it's not asking for the why or the how. And so this one, then, you could answer this with just a list. So it needs some revision to make it analytical. This one, I think this is, again, a pretty good split. I can agree with the way you all came down on this. As I looked back through this and the response that I gave in the document, and please do read through that. Let me know if you have thoughts, questions, what you kind of taken away from this exercise. Because as I said, it wasn't meant to be a definitive answer key. but instead something to help you understand my reasoning and the aspects of questions that I was pointing out in this exercise. So, again, I thought of this one as being fairly strong. I could see it being too narrow, though. So that's something with that one. What were the main environmental, social, and political impacts of the Manhattan Project on communities in northern New Mexico? I think hits that sweet spot as well. Somebody pointed out maybe we would want to focus on one of the three, just environmental, just social, just political, and that might be the case. In situations like this, you might start out with a question that is broad enough to include those three different categories. But when you start doing the research, you'll realize, oh my goodness, if I tried to cover all three, there's just so much information here, that's too much. So instead, I'm going to focus all on the social impacts of the Manhattan Project, because there's just so much information here. And that's okay. So as you complete your research questions for your projects this week, workshop them with each other on Twitter, and then post them to Medium by Sunday. Keep in mind that you don't have to be wedded to the question that you come up with here. Again, you'll be pushed to kind of revise what you did originally through your peers' responses, through my feedback. But if you are doing research, you're going along with your project, and you figure out that this question just isn't quite right because of what I'm actually finding in the sources, revise the question so that it better fits what is available to you and what you're able to do, if that makes sense. This one, was statehood important to New Mexico history? So broad, so wide open, it needs some major revisions because it's super subjective, and it doesn't really, it does talk about statehood. We're talking about statehood in New Mexico history, but that's the only specificity we get. So again, pretty good. I like the way these break down, and I always find your thoughts on them interesting. So I would really love to hear more about what you thought of my characterization of these questions. So remember, you should have gotten access once you complete this survey or this form. It should send you a link to a Google Doc that has my breakdown of what I thought about these questions. I called it the quote unquote answer key because it's not really definitive answers. If you want some extra credit, down below in the activity feed, I will post a little, I'll make a post that says, here's where you should respond to this. But if you want to kind of add your 2 cents, because again, as I pointed out, my answers aren't definitive. I think there's more work that could be done with these. So let me know. What do you think of my stance on the questions? What did I kind of miss that we should be thinking about as we draft our own research questions? Or you could just do the broad, what did this activity kind of help you better understand about posing research questions for historical work? All right, I'll leave it there because as you know me now, I am wont to ramble. So I hope you're having a good day, you have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.